Nei, I tēnei rā. Nō reira me hihiri tātou. Unuhia, unuhia, unuhia. Ko te paumua, ko te pauroto, ko te pauwhakauruhanga atu ki te tonga. Te manu hairangi I te tau I karo. Kōkiri ki ngā mate e hoki ki te ora. Kimihia, whano, whano, hara mai te toki. Haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. Tēnā tātou, I will hand over the rākau to Anne-Marie.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Anne-Marie Thomas, toko ingoa, kei te noho o ki Tamaki Makaurau. I'm going to do a very brief intro to Te Tōtara Workforce Capability Framework before passing on to our wonderful presenters today. I am the LIANZA project manager supporting the implementation of the Te Tōtara Capability Framework, po Tarawaho o Te Tōtara. Te Tōtara was developed with wide input from across the sector. It was piloted by Kapiti Coast District Council Libraries, and it was introduced to Kākaho in the Whiria Te Tangata program led by Te Rōpū Whakakau and supported by the National Library of New Zealand. And many of the early adopters of the framework and adapters of the framework are from this program. Te Tōtara was developed with the principle of partnership, of mahitahi, and it has a vision of strengthening bicultural capability and honouring te tiriti o Waitangi. In this webinar, you'll hear about adaptations and capability developments from the lens of Māori leading capability development in their context. The presenters you will hear from today therefore bring a te ao Māori lens specific to their place. These are examples of leadership in tangata whenua mahi in the sector and in articulating what partnership is in their library setting. We're really looking forward to hearing from 3 different settings, 4 presenters, their kōrero with you today. As a frame of reference, Te Tōtara is a resource for individuals to self-reflect and determine their goals. It's a resource for teams to share what is in their kete, their strengths. So it's a strengths analysis tool. It's also there for teams to be guided to find opportunities for development. So it's a gap analysis tool. And it's there then for teams to identify, plan and action professional development. So it's there for kaimahi, it's there for whakawhanangatanga, and it's there for mahitahi. You'll find Te Tōtara on the LIANZA website, and also you'll find it on the original project page on the National Library website. You'll also find some supporting resources. 2 in particular I wanted to point you towards. This is on your left, Taku Tōtara. It's a comprehensive workbook. And on the right there is Pā Tōtara, which is a worksheet, a simple 1-page format. And both of these documents, you have your Te Tōtara framework alongside. And then these 2 documents are interactive. It can be saved and downloaded for each kaimahi to retain and to go back to. There are also e-learning modules and resources for teams to go and have a look at on the website. On YouTube, have a look out for an earlier webinar just last year, facilitated by Carla Jeffrey, who was at that time the expert advisor to Ao Māori for the National Library of New Zealand. And Carla, along with others from the Whiria Te Tangata program, from a diverse range of backgrounds and experiences, speak on that webinar about Te Tōtara. And then there's a more recent webinar where I take you through the resource and the supporting resources, and that's also on YouTube. And then finally, I wanted just to point you towards where on the LIANZA website you'll find the Te Tōtara page. So go to the professional development page. And my email is annemarie@lianza.org.nz if any of you want to come find out more about the project or more about the resources or look for any support and implementation. So I will now pass on to Cellia, who's going to talk more about Te Tōtara and then the other pieces of work in the sector that support development from a Māori-led approach. Kia ora, Cellia.
One moment, caller. Just talk amongst yourselves. No, one moment. Here we go. Can't see what I'm doing. Oh, was that said out loud? No, I know exactly what I'm doing. It works. Ta-da!
You need to share the whole slideshow.
Is it working?
That's it. Yes, it's good.
Oh, tēnā tātou te whare. So, Te Tōtara is a practical tool for reflection and development. And it starts with A at the bottom, with ngā pakiaka, or the kaupapa, or the roots, which contain the principles and are a strong basis for the mahi. And I would like to emphasize that the preparation and groundwork that happens in the roots are any tools that can be used to advance mātauranga Māori within the Western processes, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then, of course, we move up to B, te tinana or te tiwai, or the trunk, and it shows the ethics of the profession and the context we build upon. And this touches all part of our work. And then we're moving up to C, to the ruha me ngā peka, the top branches or any branches, are the competencies and capabilities needed to do our job well. And these are adaptable. And then ngā rau, moving down across to ngā rau, is a metaphor. The metaphor of the leaves falling back to the ground is an example of reflection and evaluation. And this enables us to continuously develop and build on our learnings, including our failures. So this kupu whakarite represents both a tree and a forest of interconnectedness, interconnected trees and the wider ecosystem of the library and the GLAMI sector. And in turn, it's supporting the community and institutions or organisations in which you work. So, as I mentioned earlier, part of the preparation or groundwork are any tools that can be used to advance mātauranga Māori within Western processes. So as significant holders of mātauranga Māori in Tonga, the National Library, and actually all libraries, have an important role in the care and protection of mātauranga and Tonga, and in recognising and respecting the unique rights and interests Māori have over that which we hold and care for. So shared challenges were identified from within the Mātauranga Māori mandate, and these 4 challenges are Mātauranga Māori knowledge and or application gaps. Well, that's sort of pretty self-explanatory. Sustained underinvestment, and this means sustained underinvestment in Māori information infrastructure, capacity, and Māori cultural and heritage advice across the sector, which has further perpetuated inequalities, as well as the ongoing harms that inequalities are caused by Western frameworks. Systemic integration failure, which means attempts to integrate mātauranga Māori into the heritage sector, has not always been successful. And mātauranga sometimes becomes something to be extracted and used without understanding its wider context. And exclusionary loops, where choices about what is worth receiving, how for metadata access and descriptions and all of that, or whose views count and who has majority resources, tend to be made in favour of majority culture worldviews. And so this has created closed and exclusionary loops where preferred methods and approaches are privileged above others, such as Māori controlled data infrastructure, rights and ownership, and Māori data sovereignty best practice. So institutions need to invest in mātauranga Māori to be effective, maximise efficiencies and deliver mutual value. Hoi anō, I'm here today to talk about the mātauranga Māori standards. So the National Library, the mātauranga Māori team within Te Aratahi, which is the project that is building the new building and setting the new archival building and is setting up the groundwork for success. We developed the standards, the team, and there are 5 with 15 specifications, and it says here a holistic description of what high quality mātauranga Māori practice looks like and what it means to uphold our obligations and responsibilities as a treaty partner and as key holders of important mātauranga Māori and Tonga Māori collections. So the requirements of the standards link directly to our strategy, mātauranga Māori strategy, and provides depth and context to the specific standards and specifications, and supports practitioners to identify and develop high quality practices in respective settings, right? So the standards and specifications are purposefully designed at a high level, so every practitioner, all of you, can apply them to suit the context in which you are working in. And if you would like a copy at the end, I will let me know and I can send you a copy. But we would also value feedback. So these standards are designed to complement other resources where the rights and interests of Māori are to be upheld and to facilitate achievement of other institutions or sector deliverables. So the standards enable us to describe the essential knowledge and practice required for mātauranga Māori efficacy in our heritage institutions, and are to promote high quality mātauranga Māori application in the development of our policies and practices and services for whānau hapu iwi Māori and all New Zealanders across all heritage-related settings, and to set the standard expected for effective application of mātauranga Māori and measure impact, to guide mātauranga Māori capability assessment, learning and development, and to strengthen public confidence and trust in our libraries and heritage institutions by adopting and implementing the standards rather than the standards being seen to be something towards. So here we go. So these are the 5 mātauranga Māori standards. So how do we use these standards? So exploring the standards requires 3 broad steps. To begin, we begin with the standards and the specifications. So we read them, familiarise ourselves with the standards and the associated specifications. We work through the prompt questions for the standards, And then we discuss corresponding requirements of good and leading practice, in which is sits alongside the questions. This will be apparent in a minute. That's 1. 2, we use the self-assessment matrix for the standards that you are reviewing to identify where you, your team, the project, or the institution is currently placed. So we commit to a continuous improvement approach to mātauranga Māori capability and competency. We're using a matrix to identify what we do well and identify areas we would like or need to improve. And finally, it's plan for change and continuous improvement. So the expectation is that individuals and teams, as part of their existing commitment to uphold the rights and interests of Māori, will extend their existing quality assurance practices to encompass these standards. So the standards will have particular relevance and potentially unique meaning to different areas of our work. So for this purpose, the term continuous improvement is used to capture the basic process of continual and informed service development and improvement. So here we go. So I'm talking about standards, and we're using standard 1, protection of mātauranga Māori. And the specification 1.1 is we uphold, you can read it there. And under each specification, we have prompt questions. So when you are looking at your problem or at a piece of work and you're wondering if you are protecting mātauranga Māori, you use the questions on the left and to inform and use the requirements of what good practice looks like on the right to interrogate your mahi. And it's okay if it's it doesn't have to be perfect, but if you see the gap, the thing is about if you see the gap, then you can know where you need to improve. So OMG, I'm on time. So are there any questions out there? I can't see anything. Here we go. I will stop sharing. Ta-da! If you would like a copy of the standards, they are freely available. You can email me and I will send them out to you. Hoi anō I tēnei wā, ka hoatu te rākau ki Rangihurihia. Mana tonu ia e whakamohio ko wai nohia. I don't even think I done that. Kia ora tātou. And at the end of that, my name is Cellia. And I work at the National Library. That's a bit obvious. Apai. Kei a koe Rangihurihia.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Is everyone hearing me and seeing me okay?
It's all good.
Oh, ka pai. Ai, kia ora tātou katoa. Ko tainui te waka, ka whia te moana ngā te mani poto te iwi, no te nehe nui me te tai hau auru a hau. Ko tākuta Rangihurihia McDonald, tōku ingoa. Kia ora everyone, I'm Hurihia. I'm the Pouarahi or cultural lead at Te Iho Te Manuataki, the library at the University of Waikato. I've been in my role for about 2 years now. So I'm aiming to speak for about 15 minutes today, and I believe there's time at the end of the webinar for discussion and questions. So firstly, a little bit of context. Te whare wānanga o Waikato is located in Kirikiriroa. On Māori land, we have about 13,000 students, and about a third of our student population is Māori and Pacific. We also have a unique relationship with the kingitanga, the Māori King movement. Before explaining the framework itself, I thought it would be useful to provide a bit of an overview of the work that we've done in the lead up to the launch of our framework earlier this year. So as a result of an independent review into claims of racism at the university about 4 years ago now, our institution launched Te Tōtara. It has an intention to transform the university into an anti-racist and inclusive institution, and it has 3 goals. Goal 1, that systemic and casual racism no longer have a place. 2, Te Tiriti o Waitangi is at the heart of the life and work of the university. And thirdly, that mātauranga Māori is treasured. So up until recently, this has been what has guided our cultural capability work. While the overarching goals have been a useful guide, there wasn't actually a clear and actionable program of work for staff to follow. So in addition to the university goal of becoming an anti-racist institution, our library underwent several changes starting in about 2021 with the arrival of a new university librarian, Michelle Blake, who led the development of a new library plan, which among other things aims to increase Māori and Pacific staff, enhance the cultural capabilities of our people and Indigenise library services. As well as supporting the university's ambition to become an anti-racist institution. It was clear that Indigenous expertise was going to be required to lead out this work. So after a staff reorganisation in 2022, 6 new permanent Māori and Pacific positions were created, as well as 2 student assistant roles. Due to the number of roles, it was possible to cluster recruit, which signalled to prospective candidates that they'll come into our library as part of a network of support. Our recruitment ads talked about flexible working and that you didn't need previous experience in libraries or universities. Michelle worked with senior Māori staff across campus to embed tikanga Māori into the interview process and the welcomes or the whakakau for these new staff. We now have Indigenous staff spread across 4 of our 7 library teams, with 4 of our staff members fluent in Te Reo Māori. The addition of these positions has resulted in Māori and Pacific staff numbers increasing from approximately 7 to 21% of around 58 staff. Prior to the reorganisation, there were no Māori voices at the leadership level within our library, and now 1/3 of our manager group is Māori. So the recruitment of Māori and Pacific staff has really enabled us to progress with our indigenisation work. We did a big piece on casual racism last year, holding conversations across our library teams. The meetings focused on understanding terminology, including what is meant by casual racism and racial microaggressions. During these meetings, we also shared anonymously some of the lived experiences of our Māori and Pacific staff, which were powerful and impactful. We've created an anti-racism resource list, a discussion group on teams, and conversations with staff as part of the onboarding process. Following the training, we surveyed staff and have available a racism reporting form where experiences can be logged and staff can get support to have issues resolved. While much of our work so far addresses more of the personal and casual racism, we are aware that we have much to do as a library towards addressing institutionalised racism. Part of this work has begun within some of our collections and library systems. Conversations have started, for example, about how we deal with problematic books in the collection, which may contain controversial, sexist, racist, false, or outdated content. On Goal 2, we've made it a requirement for our staff to attend the university-wide Te Tiriti o Waitangi training sessions, which are not compulsory for university staff at the moment. At the end of last year, we had all but 2 of our library staff go through one of the trainings. The third and final goal is that mātauranga Māori is treasured, and we've been working hard to ensure that aspects of the Māori world are seen, heard and felt within our library. All library staff have access to regular te reo practice sessions and team meetings, and this is thanks to our te reo speaking staff who have offered to lead these sessions. We hold fortnightly waiata practices and have embedded things like karakia into all of our team meetings. We've developed research and referencing materials in te reo, and te reo is being increasingly used across our digital platforms. Last year, we had our Māori and Pacific staff collaborate to deliver a 2-part series on Indigenous research for our library colleagues. Some of the key topics centred on kaupapa Māori research, mātauranga Māori, and the importance of oral tradition and art to Indigenous research. We've also been thinking about access, diversity, equity and inclusion more broadly, and have launched a number of initiatives in this space. Some of them are listed here. So this brings us to our cultural capability framework. While we're already doing some of the work, the creation of a framework has allowed us to provide clear expectations to staff about the required cultural capabilities to contribute to a safe, supportive and anti-racist library as honourable treaty partners. Further to this, it also provides a model for staff to reflect on their current knowledge, skill and practice, and to identify areas for growth. Our framework was adapted from a few other models, including Te Tōtara, of course, and also the cultural capability frameworks of Newcastle University, Te Tumuherenga at Auckland University, and one of our internal library competency matrices. And our framework consists of 3 domains, being Te Tiriti o Waitangi, Te Ao Māori, and anti-racism. The framework uses 4 capability levels from tauira, developing, through to tohunga, or advanced. So there is an expectation that all library staff meet at least the mōhio, foundational capability level. Though for some staff, their role may demand a higher standard. For example, some specialist roles, leaders and some managers may be expected to lead and advise others in some areas. We've actually gone through and mapped each library role against the framework based on where we expect the role, not the person, to be. So this page is taken from the Te Ao Māori domain. Down the left-hand side, we have the core capabilities. So in this instance, Te Ao Māori, Te Reo Māori, Tikanga and Mātauranga. Staff read through the levels to decide where they land for each of the core capabilities. If they are at the tauira level, here in the grey, which obviously is below the required library standard, there are recommended actions that one can take to assist their learning. The live links connect staff with either courses, readings, or other resources they can use to upskill in this particular area. So, for example, if we look at Te Ao Māori along the top there, if staff have yet to develop their understanding of Māori history and worldviews, there are recommended actions. So one of them is enrolling into the course we offer here at the university, Māori 102, Introducing the Māori World. Otherwise, there are other resources that they're linked to enable their learning, and they can work through these at their own pace. Within this capability, we expect all staff to have an understanding of Māori origins and the settlement history of Aotearoa, as well as Māori worldviews. Matatau goes beyond this, where staff look for ways of incorporating elements of Te Ao Māori into their day-to-day work in respectful collaboration with Māori. And then staff at the tohunga level are able to lead and guide others in this area. So, and that's how it works for each of the capabilities. And a similar matrix exists for the other two domains as well, Te Tiriti o Waitangi and anti-racism. This year we launched our framework to coincide with the start of our annual staff objective and development review process. Staff use the framework to identify areas where they've yet to meet the library's minimum standard or where they need to develop further than the minimum standard in accordance with their roles. So all staff were required to incorporate at least one cultural capability goal into their objectives for the year, and this was agreed upon between themselves and their manager. So our framework sits on a Microsoft site alongside a self-reflection tool and survey, and links to resources and further support. Staff have received the framework positively and have found it useful to know what is expected of them, with clear actions and resources for further development. So since launching our framework, there's been interest from other service areas and teaching areas within our university, as well as other libraries, universities and organisations throughout Aotearoa. So our university currently doesn't have a cultural capability framework for the entire university. So we've been in discussions with our Deputy Vice-Chancellor Māori office, as well as people in capability, about taking a proposal to our university exec to adapt and adopt the framework across the institution. And finally, the framework and collection of resources continues to be refined and added to over time. I wanted to conclude this presentation today with this photo of our library staff alongside the esteemed te reo expert, historian and interpreter translator, Professor Tom Roa. This event marked a significant milestone in our indigenisation journey, the renaming of our library from Te Whare Puka Puka, the House of Books, to Te Iho Te Manuataki, the beating heart of the university, a name we officially unveiled in September of this year. It signals a continued commitment to becoming a culturally capable, inclusive and anti-racist library reflective of our university communities. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. And on that note, I think I'll hand it back to Celia or Anne-Marie.
It'll be me. I'll do it. Nō reira, tēnā hoki koe Rangihurihia, mō tō whakamārama mai, and me te take, me te kaupapa, he aha koutou i whera ai. Nō reira, tēnā koe. Nei rā te mihi, haere atu tainui, nau mai whanganui. Ko Jazz, rao ko Sandy, mā korua wā korua kōrero e timata, but we now welcome Jazz and Sandy, and they can introduce themselves. Ka pai.
Jazz and Sandy, if you hit the your slideshow from the beginning.
They have frozen.
Oh, have they?
So we'll just talk amongst ourselves. Maybe there seems to be questions coming from a room that I can see called Te.
The team from Te Māori looks like they've got their hands up for a question, and they've had it up since your presentation, Celia. Does someone want to ask their question from Te Māori?
Oh, kia ora. Ko mātene haumona toku ingoa, ko i te pou mātauranga Māori o Te Aka Māori, Rotorua Library. Yeah, lovely to meet everyone. I just wanted to talk to a few points that have been discussed. Probably the first one, I just noticed on one of the slides that there was a repetition of, of one of the standards in the promotion of Te Reo Māori was captured twice. But I just wanted to note that there was some reference to also the importance of whānau, iwi and hapu representations in their standards as well, and wondering if that was inclusive in those standards, or if that was a consideration. But I think one of the obstacles that we do face is libraries, such as our library here in Rotorua, is bound to our local council. And we do have some libraries out there in our communities that are bound to a council that doesn't really reflect their iwi hapu representation. So, for an example, Te Puke is in the Western Bay of Plenty District Council, so they're bound to mātātua representation or promotion of Te Reo Māori, but their iwi representation is Te Arawa. So how do we, how would we note or help those libraries that would probably have challenges to promote the correct mātauranga Māori within their library? And I also see that Te Tōtara is a good implementation for mātauranga Māori experts that are employed by the library themselves, but that's not the reality for most libraries. Most libraries have to go back to their district council mātauranga Māori to help them implement those strategies. So those people that are working for council that are getting distributed out to the libraries, they have a lot of responsibilities, so they can't really invest all of their time into supporting that library with one framework, as they probably have many different hats. It's a little bit different for us here at Te Aka Māori, because I'm the one that leads the mātauranga Māori space here, but that's not the reality for a lot of our libraries out there. So what would the response be for our whānau out there that have trouble with the promotion of te reo within their library because they just don't have a mātauranga Māori person there to lead it for them?
Too hard. So, oh my God, there were so many questions in there. And one of them, okay, I'm going to read through the standards. They are the protection of mātauranga Māori, promotion of mātauranga Māori, preservation of mātauranga Māori, provenance of mātauranga Māori, and probative value of mātauranga Māori. So whichever one, sorry, because the other thing that I thought when you talked about Te Puke, and they need to use the standards to ensure that they're talking to the right people. So that's where it all, where the rubber hits the road, right, is what you have to what you're dealing with. If you have policies that that interrogate what they're doing, or a strategy, do you have is there a mandate? You know, do you have those things will inform how your institution, organisation or council moves forward. I think that sounds like a council problem. Oops. Oh yeah, no, it's a great question, and we welcome all the questions. But first of all, we're going to hoki atu ki whanganui, and then we will come back and discuss as a rōpū au pātai e hoa. No reira, kei a kōrua.
Tēnā tātou. Sorry about that. Are we unmuted? We're still having a bit of trouble, but as long as you can see us and you can see our PowerPoint, we're happy.
You're all good.
Ko Jasmin Ratana tōku ingoa, no te awa o Wanganui, Ngāti Mariki Taranaki hoki. I am the Pou Wiria or Māori Information Librarian for the Wanganui District Library. So, there, those words.
Kia ora tātou, ko Sandy Nepia hau no te uri o Wanganui me Tūwarito me Ngā wānau katoa.
Yeah.
Engari, he pauherenga o te Wanganui Atara, and pauherenga is really the vessel to go across all areas of council and just make changes. Kia ora.
Kia ora. So, a few years ago now, I was in the first cohort of Wiria Te Tangata. So we were presented with the Te Tōtara framework and, asked to make criticisms, etc. I was the one who wasn't a fan, so I decided to put my money where my mouth is and have a go at making it work for us here in Whanganui. So, yep. Oh. So you probably don't want to see this again because I've seen it a few times already. But so our little look covers the various things we had to do. So just a bit of context for everybody, just a little background on our library and our community. So that's Wanganui. There's our beautiful awa there. Doesn't look that blue at the moment, just saying. But so we have 28.5% people of Māori descent, and our average age is 26, so pretty low. So we have a series of libraries. That is the Alexander Library, Te Rerenga Māori, which is where we are based at the moment. But we have our main lending library, cafe library, mobile library, and 4 community hubs. I got this straight off the system, so it is not a lie. Current active borrowers, 35,241, and regular users, 26,000. So that's quite impressive. Our library staff, so 26 full-time equivalents, 5 of them are in management, 2 in administration, 2 in IT. 8 at any one time of those 26 are casuals. So we have 6 Māori staff, 2 are in management. So of that 5 in management, 2 Māori and the others are English.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, they are.
So when we looked at the Te Kāori framework, one of the big things was because of the paiaka and the Māori kaupapa that was contained in the framework, we already had a kaupapa Māori framework working in the library and had been working well for us. So we introduced the Te Kāori framework in 2014. So it's been working well for around 10 years now. And we use that as, I guess you might say, our ethics guide. It informs all our policies, all of that type of thing. So it was created with our iwi support. So our local iwi do support the framework. And so a big thing for us with Te Tōtara is how does the paiaka sit within our framework, or does it? So in order to have a good look at Te Tōtara, and so that it's not just all about me, essentially, I gathered a bit of a staff focus group. Some of the comments that came back after they had a good look at Te Tōtara and a good read, one of them was make it shorter, because Te Tōtara, while it's an amazing document, it's quite weighty. It's quite a large document for everybody to read through. So, there was quite a bit of comment about that. One of them was that some of the staff couldn't find the relevance to their particular jobs in the library. I feel like their jobs may have been covered in the framework, but it just wasn't readily obvious to them. So they felt that some of it was more relevant to management than to their jobs. So yeah, that's why they didn't think it was relevant to them. we talked about the whole tree concept, so the tōtara concept, and that fact that the kaupapa Māori stuff was at the bottom and under the ground. So there was a bit of discussion about that, and you know, particularly with our Māori staff, a lot of them would prefer to have seen the kaupapa Māori rise to the top of the tree where the capabilities are. So we had a big discussion around that. I had a good talk with management. So we did a special presentation for management to have a good look at the framework and see how they felt about it. You know, and the feedback from them was that, you know, there's a lot of good aspects in it that they liked. They felt that compared to what they do now, or what they, you know, were doing up until then, that it's quite time consuming for the staff and for management. And some of them felt like they had got rid of the self-appraisals that they did in the past because they felt that it was counterproductive for staff sometimes. So, because it had a kaupapa Māori framework, we decided to ask our iwi and our Māori staff how they felt about that particular bit. So we went out to the 3 iwi that are connected to our library around here. So we have Wanganui, we have Ngāti Apa, and we have Ngā Rauru, who are our nearest iwi areas that overlap. So we went out to ask them about the mātauranga Māori aspects. We added that in, eh? Yeah. And of course the Māori staff. So here was the first comment we had from Ruka Broughton, who is from Ngā Rauru, and probably his biggest thing was that, and what he said to me at the time was that if you look at a native forest from the outside, he said it looks like chaos looking in. He said a pine forest is open and, you know, you can see in it. So he felt like the tree was more like a pine tree, because he said in a native forest, the small trees are all out, you know, on the edges, and he said you can't really see in there. So he felt that, you know, that was the first protection for your forest, and then the bigger trees like the tōtara will be inside. So he felt like not every tree could be a tōtara or your forest wouldn't stand. That was what he said to me anyway. And the other thing, of course, he said was it's just like many other government department things that he'd seen before, which, yeah, I don't know if that was a compliment or not, but he said you could just about change the name of the government department at the top, and then, you know, it would be all the same. Yep. Ngāti Apa, Grant Hawaila, he had concerns about Māori frameworks being implemented over the top of, you know, more generic frameworks being implemented over the top of local frameworks. And he said it doesn't seem to hold true that there's a bottom-up framework when the local mātauranga is particularly being supplanted by generic Māori uara contained within a nationalised one-size-fits-all framework. So he's obviously concerned also about it not showing what local people are about. Rawiri Tiniro, he commented really about kind of the same thing, that we wanted it, we like our local kaupapa to show through when we're doing things in our region. Yeah, so very similar. So, looking at that, we decided to create an extra skill set. So this is partly because of what was said by our local iwi experts, and partly because of how the staff felt about how they were represented in the framework. And we did go through it quite, you know, we searched through it for that kind of representation of what Māori staff do in the library. So we decided to create new skill set to sort of replace that, I guess. So something that has our unique perspective, that is, you know, based on our kaupapa Māori and, you know, the local interpretation. So the skills as follows. A recognition of taonga. So this is something that we've tried to bring in to the library a lot. So we've tried to move from calling our things items and books and items and archives and start referring to them as taonga. So we thought our first skill should be around this. So skill 1, the ability to treat all taonga as though they have mana, mauri and tapu. Skill 2 was around our Whanganui-tanga Declaration. So this is a Declaration of Nationhood 1994. So Whanganui-tanga incorporates our inherent right to protect, enhance and fully control the transmission of spiritual, intellectual, cultural, historical, political, educational, social, economic knowledge in tikanga o te iwi o Whanganui. So it kind of brings in the comments from our iwi partners around having that local, I guess that local knowledge and that sort of, you know, coming from our own Whanganui-tanga. So we interpret the skill as a tribal connection to Whanganui iwi. So I know this might sound a bit sort of, I don't know, we're leaning on the not so much the racist side, but I guess we're leaning on the you know, only someone from Whanganui iwi can do it sort of thing. But like, you know, everybody doesn't have to have every skill. You know, some of the skills can be, you know, in a selection of people, obviously. But we felt that the tribal connection doesn't have to be whakapapa as long as, you know what's going on. It's preferable though. Hey.
Mm-hmm.
Skill 3, the ability to be in mana enhancing. So this is about the exercise of manaakitanga, which always we're called upon as Māori librarians to do and oversee, whether we want to or not.
Yeah.
And guide the engagement, being mana enhancing. Practice of tikanga, so the ability to lead the traditional practices of tikanga Whanganui. As part of our community, we need to know and do these things in the way that Whanganui should do them, because we're in Te Rohe o Whanganui. Skill 5, Te Mita o Whanganui, also very important. As we all know, the revitalisation of our reo is very important to us. So we thought, how are we going to do this? So with our new skill set, we had a look at maybe changing that tree that we were so uncomfortable with to something that's more relevant to Whanganui. So we looked at changing it to a waka, because our awa is central to our community. It's central to our kōrero as iwi. So we went with a waka, essentially. So we took a waka, just a general river waka. We don't sort of have anything flash here, so it's sort of our
It's actually a te wehi o te rangi waka, and I'm hitting her because that's my waka from my hapu.
That's your nan in that picture. Yeah. So we wanted to make sure that we knew that the waka came from the original Te Tōtara framework. So it's going to be a waka carved from Te Tōtara, he waka tiriti, so it's for everybody, not just for Māori people. It's a treaty waka, so we can all get on board and know that our particular waka belongs to everyone. So we decided to combine our Te Kauri framework with the LIANZA Code of Conduct and Bodies of Knowledge. Part of the reason for this is that when we did our staff focus group, pretty much everybody in the focus group had never heard of those LIANZA Code of Conduct, Bodies of Knowledge things. They didn't even, they didn't even know what they were. So we've combined those two, so they both have a position and can inform our mahi. The hoi is the powerhouse, of course, so those are our various capabilities. So they've gone from being the top of the rākau to now being the hoi of our waka. So all those various hoi are in there. We thought that the great thing about them being the hoi or the paddles is because, when they wear out a bit, we can toss them out and get another one. They're replaceable. Sometimes, our needs or our capabilities change over time, as we find sometimes with our library work and our community changes. So we can swap them out. So this is our wangani skill set that we brought in. So that is the po of our waka. So one of the things that a river waka has on the Wangani River is a po to enable us to get up the rapids. So we thought that that was something uniquely part of our traditions. So the po becomes the wangani skill set, keeps us on track, makes us regionally and locally relevant, and maintains our kaupapa Māori. So that's it essentially. So the Te Kauri and LIANZA Code of Professional Conduct become the standard for all staff. Management can use the hoi as a guide to assess not only their own performance, but their team's performance. It also helps to identify gaps in the workforce. Staff can choose the hoi that applies for them and use a set of reflection suggestions to reflect on where they'd like to develop their skills. So these are coming from the Te Tōtara framework. So it's still there in the background for people to use as the way forward. And then, of course, you meet with your manager, which is what they already had in place. So that's it, essentially. Stop our sharing, Sandy. Yeah. Okay. That's us. So, tēnā tātou.
Are there any questions anyone has or any comments anyone wants to make? Celia.
I just want to say I think that may have answered the question that came out of Te Akamori room about think nationally and act locally, different strokes for different folks. Ka pai? He tātai anō.
Kia ora koutou. I just wanted to follow up on something that also came from your question from Te Aka Māori team and the response from Cellia, which was about this informs how the organisation goes forward. So what are the responsibilities of the wider organisations that your library is sitting within? And what Jazz was saying about not everybody has the same skill set. The library also can't hold a skill set and a knowledge set that encompasses everybody at all times and encompasses all taonga. So I guess there's a challenge here about how libraries reach out and are supported, but also engage. That engagement from Sandy and Jazz, that iwi engagement informed a shift from a generic framework to a local Wanganui framework. And where Te Tōtara is generic, it's a starter seedling, But where the organisation might be informed by Te Tōtara is to say, there are a whole lot of gaps here. Our waka only has this, this or this, or our tree only has this, this or this. So I see Te Tōtara as a tool for advocacy out to the wider organisation. And it's obviously a starter conversation to have as engagement with your iwi and other iwi who are sending their students to you. And yes, it's definitely got lots and lots of applications for you to decide what you want to do with it or not. Start afresh. Kia ora.
Are we on time?
Emery, I was just saying, I think having that iwi input is really huge for us. And, you know, in a way, it saves us having to have that capability within our own workforce because there is our backstop. So, yeah.
And the other importance of that is not using them just for that. It's working with them, providing spaces for them, because you have a library, and I'm just lucky I'm one of the managers, so I have all the spaces that a library goes to, and offer that and work with our people, and offer opportunities for them, even if it's just to house the kaumātua for a cup of tea, or another hui's going on next door, which is that ability to work with them in manaakitanga in all different ways. It helps them see why we would like to do this kind of framework and how they see us working with them. Never about on them, it's with them. So kia ora.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can kind of hear though in this context that Whanganui Library is similar to Te Aka Māori, where we both represent the same iwi representations in terms of our council representations. So your guys' council and your guys' library are talking to the one people, but there are some libraries out there that have they don't have that connection because they're bound to a different council that doesn't reflect their iwi boundary. So that's where the confusion is. So Te Puke can't talk to Te Aroa because they're bound to the Western Bay of Plenty Council, which is built of mātātua representation. So the reo that's going into their library is not a reflection of their iwi boundary. So that's where the confusion is. So it's just like the Tōtara framework where it's a mātauranga Māori implement into those libraries, but there might be, like I'm talking about the reo, the promotion of te reo Māori within our libraries, like, well, there is no dialect for kōrero paki, for kōrero pono, but then when we give those sort of words back to a library on a national level, then we can take those words back to our libraries to figure out what the iwi dialect is. So it is kind of similar to how you have implemented that on the Tōtara framework. You have taken that to your iwi and then you put an iwi lens across it. And I think that might be something that we need to think about in terms of the promotion of te reo Māori within our libraries, because go to different libraries, he rere te reo, but you wonder mena rāne he mita reo tērā reo, ki era tāpaitanga reo. So that's where I was kind of getting at, that the confusion is not the library's direct engagement with iwi, but it's the confusion of their library being in a district where there's not the same iwi representation. Koina no.
That's cool. And that's exactly where we were coming from. And like you say, it stretches over to different councils and stuff. Well, we're lucky because we work, our awa stretches right across all of them, except for our Ngārauru, but we still have connections in Ngāti Apa through that. And no matter what, we're talking to the mouthpieces of them. We're not just talking to the workers. So where the strategy works in and how we can support them no matter what. And I mean, it's only right that mita is our thing. That's our pūkenga. And each one wants to have their own ka pai, but we will help shape your library mita right across, but we give it work with them. We don't work over them. So kia ora.
Did somebody have another question? It came and went? No.
I don't think there was another one, but anyone
There was a
want to
hand
raise
up.
it? Oh,
Katarina,
missed that.
she may have gone off the call now.
Kia
Here
ora.
we
Is there a time for another quick pātai?
Yep. Yep.
Kia ora, ko Katarina toko ingoa. This is a very interesting kōrero. Our libraries are in an interesting space at the moment. We've, I think, generally always had pretty good connections with our local iwi, but recently, because I'm from Kaipara, I can probably speak volumes, our councillors have disestablished, I don't know if that's the right word, our mana enhancing agreements with our local iwi. So it's put us at a really tricky place. And I don't really know if it's like really a question, but like previously, like I think a lot of our librarians, like myself, have personal connections. Like I'm part of one of the local iwis myself, but like do you use, it doesn't have to be like a formal process, or like can these frameworks be internal and you go casually, like use your own like iwi or whānau connections? Because like, I don't know, for us in Kaipara, I know like it's going to put us in a really tricky space, or we are already in a tricky space, but how do you kind of introduce a framework when you have no formal ties anymore, but like the library wants those ties, you know? I don't know, kind of not really a question, but if anyone has any thoughts or advice.
Ka pai, Katarina. I think that's a kōrero in itself. If you just want to email us back and we make time for you. Because that's huge. That's about doing cup of teas. If everyone knows about cup of teas, yeah, and carrying a bag. Kia ora.
I just want to add, so in the standards that we developed, we did talk about valuing the intergenerational continuity of mātauranga Māori and its relevance within the wider knowledge ecosystem. So these are things you can use. I'm actually talking to Rotorua. Sorry. Not kaipara, because ka roha kaipara. No. And there's also, we use appropriate governance models to include, promote, develop, maintain Te Ao Māori structures and their distinctive customs, spirituality, traditions, procedures and practices for the preservation of mātauranga Māori. So how can they, you'll probably get a, someone send me an email and I'll send you a copy of the Mātauranga Māori standards. And because all it is, are we doing this in the spirit of best practice? And then you answer these questions, and that's how you just deem whether you're doing the right thing or actually we shouldn't be doing that. But for the te puke thing, are we? So we're talking about probative value of mātauranga Māori, and so one of the specifications is, we're in one moment, caller, is, oh, here we go. We have regard for mātauranga Māori evidence in our policies, processes, practices and services. Are the council aware that they are different iwi, that the government process has divided the waka, or they have moved them to another waka? Because when it comes to probative value, so that's like law, do you provide fair and just procedures for the resolution of conflicts and disputes? You know, are they giving due consideration to tikanga, kawa tradition, rules and customs of the whānau hapu iwi and Māori concerned? So, good luck though. And if there is an awesome solution, I'd love to know it. I think we're running towards the end of our kōrero. I'm just looking for Angela or Anne-Marie.
Yes, unless there's any more questions. Anyone else want to make another comment? We do have 15 minutes left. We did allow plenty of time for kōrero for today. If there are any more questions, please, or comments, please do provide them.
Actually, I do want to make comment, and that's in regards to the Mātauranga Mātauranga standards. Now, CJ just shared that with us last week, and I so support it because we felt like we were doing iwi on our own. And now that I see the standards, it so aligns with everything that we had created. And yeah, that's just supportive, because to me, when you're working in creating policy in there, it's so good to reference back to legislated stuff and everything that's coming from the national body. I mean, you might not agree with all of it, but if your stuff fits in there, who cares? Go for it. Yeah, especially from an iwi essence. The thing that I do for those who are iwi, I find when you do put your challenge, you put a challenge and innovate in this kind of field, you end up with more than library. And yeah, I just say, warning for those who are home, working home, you end up in a lot of pockets of, and it's for the good of our people. And that way, the interaction, like they see me as the library, so the library ends up with lots of things, and there's only really Jazz and I, but we make it happen. They all collaborate, and I'm one of those ones who say, don't drop Nanny off, you come with Nanny. So yeah, kia ora.
I just wanted to thank Rangihurihia for her kōrero. I thought it was really awesome to look at the effect that the wider organisation had on the library, and as far as particularly professional development coming down from the top and affecting the people who work in the library. You know, because we have our wider council, of course, that we have to live with and work with, but it's more difficult for us from this point to influence what's going on in a wider council, you know, way. So we managed to influence the te reo, or the, you know, the te reo strategy in council, but that's probably, you know, as much as we can squeeze out of them as far as professional development goes. So it's pretty cool that, you know, Rangihurihia, that whole thing going on, which is really awesome. Lucky.
Well, Jenny Davey, you've got a question there or a comment to make. Would you like to make that now?
Thank you. Just a quick question, and I'm looking at your team resources while we've been having this discussion, and one of the suggestions for how to use it is to have team day and go from there with the framework. And I was wondering, does LIANZA have any facilitators who lead these kinds of team days for the framework?
Thank you, Jenny. So the project at this point is focused on how to use. I guess the early part of the project was focused on what is it. So on how to use, it's supporting sharing with others of their experiences of looking at the framework. And taking from today's discussion, I think the main takeaway for me to everybody going to look at Te Tōtara from a team perspective is that it is something that you're intentionally adapting for your context, and you can cherry pick from Te Tōtara, and you can cherry pick from a range of frameworks, and you can apply your local lens. When it comes to actually starting the process with your own team, there is a team exercise on the LIANZA website, which was developed for the pilot site, Kapiti District Council Library, and they did take that approach of having a facilitated session. We recently had another webinar which was for PLNZ managers, and that webinar had Ian Littleworth, who is the manager of Kapiti District Libraries, talking about the experience of piloting, and he discussed it as being a real change management process. So I think I'd be really happy to have a discussion with you about where your team's at, and what might be the best approaches to a team. I certainly don't recommend some sort of slam dunk, one day is going to do everything. And that's certainly not the experience of the early adopters, is that there's quite a process here of introducing the framework in various ways. So Jenny, I'm happy to come back to you on that, or to anyone, but no, there's no sort of facilitator role that's going around doing sort of one point of contact workshops. There will be some workshops planned for next year where we're hoping to support team leaders and managers in an interactive online workshop to have a think through some of their strategies and take them through it then.
Thank you.
I think that might be a good point for us to hand over to you, Anne-Marie, to do your call for action. You've raised the workshops next year. Is there anything else you want to raise?
There's also a community of practice that is a call once a month. This month it was actually due to be today at this time. It's on a Wednesday or a Thursday at 12 o'clock. If you send me your email address, I can add you to the invite. And just being on that list means you get it into your calendar. If you can turn up, that's great. If you have to leave partway through, that's fine. It's a community of practice where people are joining to share their experiences of adopting or adapting Te Tōtara framework, or whether they're just considering how to use it. So very happy to have any of you join this community of practice. And the momentum, I think, will build over the next few months of going from how to use to sharing more experiences of how people are using this framework and other frameworks. Today's been particularly special because the different voices are where the treasure is, where we find the treasure. So listening to people today has been really excellent for me as the project manager. I'm really glad we've been able to share these Māori-led voices with you today. And we'll aim to do more of this with Te Rōpū Whakakau as well. Kia ora. I want to hand it back to Celia now.
Just before, Celia, you pick it up, Jenny has her hand up again. Did you want to make one final comment, Jenny?
I had one final question, which is there anyone in particular in Auckland Libraries who is championing this framework?
I know that Richie Misile is very much a champion. I think I think it does come down to having some champions who sort of lead things out. So I would suggest Richie would be a point of contact. Hope I'm not throwing him in it there. He's a very busy man.
O ka pai. Nō reira, māku e whakakapi tā tātou nā kōrero I tēnei rā. Thank you all for coming. Thanks to Te Aka Māori staff for raising questions. Because, man, continuous development, learn and grow, whānau. And we welcome any comments on anything that we've talked about. Oh, was that a hand? Oh, sorry.
No, it stopped.
Oops. Nō reira, māku tonu tātou e whakakapi me hihiri tātou. Pauhihiri, paurarama, te aho i roto, mārama i roto. Tēnei te pau ko te pau kāeke, nā te pau o nei kōrero, ka mā te ariki, ka mā te tauira, kia puta ki te whaiao, ki te ao mārama, hui te ora, hui te mārama, haumi e, hui e, tai
Tai
ki.
kia.
Ka pai.
Thank you, everybody. And just a reminder, we will send out the recording of this webinar